How narratives are used to manage people. This is going to be a little longer of a video than I'm used to doing because there's a lot to this, but I really want to discuss this because what I want you all to gain from watching this is that you are being managed. You're being handled every day by narratives. And I want to explain in depth what I mean by that, but people aren't controlled by force. There's a lot of conspiracy theory and all this stuff out there that sort of projects this idea, but you're not being controlled by force or by threat or coercion of, you're being guided by stories. Narratives decide what feels normal, acceptable, or even what's considered unthinkable, what's considered to be an atrocity. But the way that you think about life is not a coincidence. The way that you think about everything, your opinions are not a coincidence. And this is, I think, one of the hardest things for people to accept. But, you go on social media and everybody's just going on and on and on about their own personal opinions and so forth. But your opinions were given to you by narratives. A narrative isn't a lie. It's not something that is like, that black or white. It's more of a selective framing of how they want to feed you reality. And it's done in an effort to reduce the complexity of the issue or whatever it is that you're discussing, because things have nuance, lots of nuance. There's a lot of things that we talk about on a daily basis and we argue over that are very complicated subjects. But people don't get into the weeds. They don't discuss the details, and they don't really get into those complex discussions. They just pick the narrative that they're following, and that becomes how they think. That is what ends up shaping their worldview. And it's in the details, it's in the complexity of the issue where power hides. Reality is chaotic. Narratives just compress it into meaning. They simplify reality so that your decisions become easy to make. And people prefer this, believe it or not. The human mind prefers this, which is why it's so easy to do. But people prefer coherence over accuracy. They're not really into the truth. They just want something that appeals to their emotional bias. And this is the reason why narratives are so effective. They define what questions are allowed. It becomes like there's boundaries placed around the narrative in a way where anyone who has certain questions that they'd like to ask to get into details, oh, that's inappropriate. Oh, you can't do that. You can't get into the details, because if you do, that's going to expose my own bias, my own narrative that I'm buying into. And narratives assign more rules, it's like someone's always the hero, someone's always the villain, right? Moral clarity reduces people's cognitive thought process because everything just becomes about moral. What is moral? This is good, that is bad. So nuance becomes suspicious. So anyone asking questions wanting to know more than good or bad, that creates a level of suspicion among people where they feel uncomfortable that you're doing that. That's how effective narratives can be at managing you. And they do on a regular basis. Because when events are being framed as good versus evil, it's treated, the complexity and the nuance to the subject gets treated as like a betrayal to the good or bad narrative, instead of what it should be, which is just trying to understand the nuance of the subject. So narratives will redirect a person's frustration away from the system that is causing it. Anger needs a target. People who are mad, they need someone to throw their anger at. Narratives give you one. They give you an enemy. And they give you a hero to cling to. And people and individuals, they just become stand-ins for structures for the system, so that the system itself remains. And this is how they get you to become compliant. They don't need to coerce you. They don't need to threaten you or force you, because they know that you will believe in your own self-belief, or your own self-policing, rather. You will self-police yourself according to your own beliefs. And social pressure just replaces enforcement, because when people around you start to make you feel like you're bad for thinking the other way, that will shape and your who you are and manage your moves better than any force imaginable. So anyways, I know that this is kind of a complex way of going about it, so I'm going to kind of dumb it down, because I don't really want to overwhelm anybody here with me speaking in, like, I want to kind of simplify how this is done. So follow me. You don't wake up in the morning and think of things randomly. It's not like you wake up in bed and you're just twiddling your thumbs and thinking about life and you come up with how you feel about things. Your beliefs are installed through a repetitious narrative that relies on inciting your emotion and giving you incentive to think a certain way. And those narratives don't really reflect reality or how things actually are. It's a manufactured reality. And the way that they do this is really strategic. So basically, they come up with a relatable identity, and then they give you a villain or a threat, and then a solution, which is some sort of call to action. So how can I explain it? Like, the best way I could put it is like this, right? Picture a television commercial, and a woman comes on and says, "Are you a single mom with kids at home who doesn't have time to wait in long lines at the bank?" Right away from that opening statement, if you're a single mom and you reflect that identity, that opening statement has hooked you. You're immediately like, huh, yeah, I am. That is me. And then you're waiting. Why? And then they follow it up. If you're tired of long lines at the bank, you should bank at Wells Fargo, where you can get in and out and with your money, and then go back to doing the things that are the most important. And then they'll show a clip of her at home playing with her kids in the commercial. Now they gave you all three of those things. They gave you the relatability. Are you a single mom with kids who needs to be at home with your kids rather than wasting time in long lines, right? So they gave you that relatable statement. They gave you a villain and a threat. Now the villain isn't other banks. The villain in this case is waiting in long lines and having your time wasted when you have other things that you need to be doing. So they gave you the villain. Now they give you the hero. They give you the solution, the call to action, Wells Fargo. And this simple narrative, you might say, well, yeah, that's marketing. Correct. But it's more than just to sell you services and products. This is used in politics, by world leaders, by people who control economic forums. This is used by the elites all over the world to manage you. Not just that what bank you go to, because obviously Wells Fargo has an incentive. They might have picked a target demographic and said, we need more single moms shopping at or using our bank or using our services. So that might be their sole agenda. But you have people who run for political office and do all this other stuff that also use these narratives. Are you tired of, are you, a part of the LGBTQ community and you're sick and tired of XYZ? Well, we have a solution for you. Vote for so-and-so. And so that ends up becoming how narratives are created. And it could be movements that create these narratives that just want more people to come into their movement. Institutions like churches, religious movements, they use narratives to manage you, control the way you're thinking, and to try to get you to comply with whatever agenda they're trying to get you to comply with. Now, another example. Are you a real man who's tired of our society trying to weaken men? Show some guy working out in the gym. Are you a real man tired of the cultural norm of weakening men, right? And then it's like, eat Campbell's soup. And it's like, all of a sudden, when this narrative happens over and over and over and over and over again, it ends up so crazy that you start to actually look at people and make assumptions about that person because of the products they buy. You might see a woman with a Wells Fargo shirt on and immediately go, oh, I bet you that woman's a single mother. You might look at a woman with a Bank of America shirt on and be like, oh, I bet you that woman's not a single mother. If she was a single mother, she'd shop at Wells Fargo. It becomes so crazy that, and this is where you end up getting social pressure, like with the guy thing. A guy could be over his boy's house hanging out with a bunch of his buddies, and then he goes, you got any Campbell's soup here? I'm hungry. We don't have Campbell's soup. What? Yo, he doesn't have Campbell's soup. What are you, weak? What are you, weak? Where's that coming from? That's coming from the millions of dollars that was spent perpetuating a narrative. And that narrative is being used to manage the way you think. So they pair identity with a problem and a villain, is essentially what they do. And then they give you a solution, which is your call to action. And if you don't comply with that call to action, then you can no longer say that you are that identity. And you are a part of the problem because you side with the villain. And this is narrative creation and how it's done. And more importantly, and this is something that I think I really want a lot of people to understand, is that this is easy to do. It's cheap. If you wanted to create a narrative, and this is something that a lot of people don't know, but I'm going to put you on the game if you don't know this. There's two different forms of advertising. There's advertising, and then there's publicity. Publicity is a form of advertising, PR. Getting in the news is often an advertisement for something. Because what ends up happening is a big news story breaks about a company or a product or a service or whatever, and that news story is shaped or framed by that company through a press release, and it's sent out. And they end up controlling or trying to control the narrative. Even if there's a narrative out there that's making their company or their services or products look bad or their brand look bad, they immediately try to control the narrative. They immediately say, okay, how can we in-house fix this by trying to, people are starting to get a truth, and we need to figure out a way to control how they think about this. And that's exactly what they do immediately. So understand this. There are websites on the internet that cost very little, not a lot of money at all, like $30 a month, $100 for a one-time payment, or $50 for a one-time payment, super cheap. And you can create a story. You could write a press release about your company, about you, about anything you want. And you could use these services where you submit the press release, you pay the fee, and you hit a button. And overnight, or like within like a 7-day period, they will mass send this story that you came up with. Doesn't even matter if it's true. Doesn't even matter if it's true. They will send it to hundreds, if not, thousands of news aggregating websites that do not check facts before loading the content on the page. So there are thousands of news websites that are just aggregators. They don't check facts whatsoever. They just want content, and they want clickbait or hot new items that will drive people to their page because they have Google ads set up on their site and so on and so forth, and they want to make an abundance of money from views on that site. So when they get a press release, it's automatic. Oh, we got a press release post. Oh, we got a press release post. Oh, we got a press release post. They don't check it. They don't care. They don't care if it's true or not. And this is a fact. Then you have a small amount of news sites, very tiny, that are real news sites that actually have investigative journalism happening. Meaning they get a press release, and before they post that story, they dig in. They want to know, well, what about this? This don't make sense. What about that? And they investigate it. Let me give you an example. I could write a press release right now that said that Tommy Kane is writing Post Malone's new album. I could literally be new unknown songwriter gets the job writing Post Malone's entire new album. I could not even know Post Malone. I could have nothing to do with Post Malone. I could have never met him, not know any of his record label people. I could be completely just somebody, just some other person. And I could create this press release that says, Tommy Kane, an unknown songwriter from California, gets the job of a lifetime writing Post Malone's entire new album. And I could take that headline, and I could take that press release, type it up, have ChatGPT even create it if I want, write it up, and then go on these PR sites and post them, or post it, pay the $50 or whatever the fee is, or the monthly sign-up fee, whatever it is, they're all different. And boom, overnight, like very quickly, in a matter of a few days, so I wouldn't say overnight, but I'd say in a few days, they will have that story on thousands of aggregating news sites. Thousands. Now, you have these small percentage of news sites that actually dig in to find out the story, have investigative journalists. They're going to get this and go, oh, wow, who's this Tommy Kane fella? And then they look it up. And then they say, wow, well, he did some songwriting back in the day, so it could be possible. Let's look into it. Then they call the label. They call over to, I believe Post Malone is signed to the one that began, Republic. They call over to Republic. Hey, so Tommy Kane, this guy's right. What? That's not true. Oh, it's not? No, that's not true. We don't even, that's not even true. They contact Post Malone's management. We don't even know who Tommy Kane is. They're not going to run the story because they've realized that it's a lie. Okay? Here's the problem, is that when 1% of the internet is doing investigative journalism and reporting the truth, they could even run a story. Tommy Kane creates fake news stories saying he's writing a song for Post Malone that's not true. They could even run with that story. They could even have quotes in there from Post Malone's management and Republic Records saying that I did not write that song. But here's the problem. When 99% of the internet is filled with news aggregators that are just posting the story that I gave them, the truth and the journalists who actually exposed me for the lie, that gets buried. The truth gets buried. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because this is something that happens every day, but on a much larger scale with billion-dollar corporations, with politicians, with anybody in America that has an agenda, anyone around the world that has an agenda. And, you know, a lot of people will say, you know, I love Elon Musk. He's a genius. He's one of the smartest people in the world. There's a reason why you think that. Now, I'm not saying that Elon Musk isn't one of the smartest people in the world. He very well may be. I don't know. I've never met him. I have no idea. I've never looked at an IQ test that Elon Musk did. I have no way to verify whether or not he's one of the smartest people in the world. You could say that it's because of companies and this and that, but we don't know what companies he actually started or he actually gave input in, or if he just bought them, or if he just hired smart people who did smart things. We don't know. I don't know. And so because I don't know, I can't possibly verify whether or not that's a true statement. But I know that Elon Musk is a multi-billionaire worth hundreds of billions of dollars who can afford to create PR that writes articles that projects him every day as being a super genius. And that is going to have an effect on a narrative. Now you take recently where, you know, Doge happened and things like that. And a lot of people, you know, for that reason, felt that he was, you know, painted in a negative light. And they suddenly no longer wanted to support him or have anything to do with Tesla and whatever. And that's because of another narrative that is being told to you. Another narrative that says that he was going in there and willy-nilly cutting all these departments and killing all these programs without even knowing what's in them. And I'm not saying that that might not be true. It very well might be true. What I'm saying is that you have a war of narratives. And once you cling to one narrative, that becomes the way you think. But it's not really the way you think. It's the way that you've been managed to think. And billions and billions of dollars goes into doing this. Another example is science. So I could own a sugar company, and I could be mad that some new sweetener that just came out that's really amazing and good for you, like a stevia type thing or something, and it makes things taste as good as if you put sugar in them, but way healthier for you, right? And I could have a problem with that because I have an agenda. I sell sugar. So I need to make sure that I don't get destroyed here. I need to get money from sugar sales. So I go and I find one scientist, just one. All you need is one. And I say to a scientist, hey, I'm going to pay you to make a study that is nonsense. Come out with a finding that is complete nonsense. Suppress the zero, figure out a way to create your, to do your statistics that make it look as though this new sweetener can cause cancer. And even though you're one scientist, and even though no one's going to see this study because you're just one scientist who has no platform, we, the billion-dollar sugar company, are going to take that study and we're going to put millions of dollars behind putting PR behind that study and social media campaigns around that study and having thousands of pages on Facebook posting memes and images that say that this sweetener causes cancer and that there's a study that found it. And once we're done with our multi-million-dollar campaign where we're creating a narrative, we have created a narrative where millions and millions of people are going to believe it, whether it's true or not. Now, once this study gets published, there's something called peer review. And that means that other scientists are going to now try to debunk this finding. If they go and they debunk that finding, and all of these studies are like, this is just not true. We've done 1 million studies, and they all come back that this is not a cancerous sweetener. Because they do not have a multi-billion-dollar company spending millions of dollars pushing that as a narrative, all those studies get swept under the rug. So you have people out there, oh, I heard that sweetener causes cancer. Yeah, I heard. Yeah, me too. I heard that too. Yeah, I'm not doing. Yo, you heard that too? Yeah, man, I've been seeing it everywhere. Yeah, I saw a meme. Yeah, I saw this news article that I was reading. Yeah, it causes cancer. And then you have that one guy off in a corner who's screaming, it doesn't cause cancer. There's literally studies all over the world that show you. But to find those, you need to do deep dive research because they're not being pushed with millions of dollars behind them. They're not being pushed out there to create a narrative. So therefore, that other narrative is winning. And so until that other sweetener, that other company, that other sweetener, they come along and they go, wait a minute, we're losing a narrative here. We need to start dumping our own profit money into pushing a challenging narrative. And so now they go out there and they get the studies that say that they're not cancerous and they put money behind that. Now, obviously, in this case, one of them would be true. But again, it's not about the truth. It's about incentive. The sweetener company wants to make money. The sugar company wants to make money. Neither one of them are putting money behind these things because they care about whether or not people get access to the truth or not. They only care about what is going to incentivize them with profits. And so there becomes an agenda, an all-seeing agenda of everybody doing what's best for them, whatever is the most incentive bringing, whatever's the most incentivizing. That is what everybody's doing, and that is what they're creating these narratives for, to manage the way you think. And once those narratives spill into social reinforcement, where it gets to the point where all of a sudden you're at a coffee shop and you're putting the sweetener in your coffee, and one of your friends like, hey, what are you doing? Don't use that. God, you shouldn't put that in your coffee. It's unhealthy. And then you're out with another friend later and it happens again, or, whatever. It's like you end up being socially pressured into believing now that this is a fact and that you have to stop. And even if you discover that it's not true, even if you read one of the studies that prove, or the fact that there's all these studies out there that prove it's not cancerous, you'll cave to the social pressure. Because the moment you're surrounded by your friends and they're all like, don't put that in your coffee, that's cancerous, you don't want to go there. You don't want to listen, guys, it's not true, because then you're going to spend the whole afternoon at the coffee shop arguing. And so it gets to the point where you just stop putting it in your coffee because you don't want to hear it anymore. And it's like you end up caving to social pressure. That ends up becoming what dictates your decision making more than the narrative itself. That's when a narrative has reached its full level of success, is when it's worked its way into pop culture, where societal pressure starts to enforce it. That's what they're all hoping for. But again, what's important to understand is that narratives are used everywhere. not just in ads. They're used in how you think politically. They're used in how you think culturally. They're used in how you think lifestyle. You're making your lifestyle choices based on narratives. You're making your lifestyle choices based on morality. I'm sorry. You're making your morality decisions based on narratives. Narratives are shaping your identity. So much so that I could get around somebody. I could look at the clothes they're wearing, the car they're driving, the kind of house they have, the products in their house, the books that are on their shelves, the video games they play, whatever it is. And I could fully paint who that person is because I understand the narratives that made them choose all those products. I know the narratives that made them think the way they do politically. I know the narratives that made them that designed their identity, that gave them their cultural identity. I know the narratives that made them or that shaped their morality and their lifestyle decisions. And so therefore, I can actually walk it back. And that's what I see. I don't see people walking around as individuals because nobody is an individual. They belong to groups that have been manufactured by narratives. And so, narrative creation being cheap and accessible to anybody makes it so that you no longer really need institutional power to like shape a narrative. You no longer need to be an elite. So this other narrative that's out there that anyone in a suit with power and money is an insider. They're the elites, that everything's shaped by the elites. No, man. People with a small budget and a small company, some little entrepreneur running a business out of his apartment can create a narrative. And the distribution of that narrative ends up mattering more than what the truth is, because people are going to be online all day, never fact checking, doing no verification, and they just sort of index the lie in their mind or the narrative in their mind. Again, it's not a lie, it's just a framing, but they index the framing of that in their mind, and that becomes how they think. And a lot of people just believe that what is highly visible and what is mostly seen out there on social media and what is mostly being repetitiously fed to them on their feed, they believe that to be a sign of legitimacy. But it's not. It's not. Your search results are authoritative. There's a reason why you think the way you do. There's a reason why even when you look things up. Now, I'm not saying that that there should be 100% distrust in literally everything and every single thing and blah, blah, blah. There is a reality. But what I do recommend is that whenever you see anything, you should ask questions. And anyone who tries to make you feel like asking questions is not good, or they try to paint you in a negative light, or you come off as suspicious because you want the nuanced information rather than the good guy and the villain, then you need to realize that that's what's going on. Because to become a critical thinker, you need to dig into the details. You need to look into the facts. And there's a million ways to do that. But if stories continue to shape what you believe, what you buy, and punish you socially, who is benefiting from the narratives that you accept without condition and without question? Who is benefiting? And I think it's key for anyone who's watching this to remember that there is an incentive behind everything. And before you fly into or dive right into some narrative just because it feels like it's right, just because it confirms your bias, it's very important to dig into it. Dig into it and be a critical thinker. And that's all I got. My name is Tom Kane. This was another episode of the Executives Playbook. I am on YouTube on this channel every single day. I have a video out every day. Please subscribe, hit the little bell, like the video, give a comment, give me feedback on these ideas because I would love to hear feedback. This is just stuff that I think on a regular basis, and I'm finally sharing it with people. So I would love to get your thoughts and your feedback. So please, hit the little bell, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, like the video. Thank you for watching. I know there's a lot of mass media out there and everything jockeying for your attention. So I feel blessed that any of you would give me time out of your life to listen to what I have to say. I'm very grateful, and I can't wait to grow this thing, all of us together. Thank you, and you guys have a good time.